The opinions and views expressed in the following presentation do not necessarily reflect those of GameCon Radio or its affiliates.
Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GameConRadio.com. We rock your world. Welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GameConRadio.com. Tonight's going to be an exercise in willpower because I'm just getting over pneumonia. Every fall, it seems I'm getting it earlier and earlier, but this year the Neverbug came home and I had her down the camper and she was really, really sick and she gave it to me. So please forgive me if I sound like I'm underwater or I start coughing uncontrollably. And my guest tonight already has the heads up that she can take over the show and just talk. Tonight, I want to welcome everybody that's listening on the players in all the ways, the iTunes, all the ways that you're able to listen to GameCon Radio. I'd just like to point out that we have a show schedule at the top of the page. You can look at it all week long. We have wonderful shows, all kinds of things. We've got boot camp with Steve, Stan. We have blues, we have classical, we have great old time radio, we have talk, we have everything. So check out the show schedule for GameCon Radio. You're really going to love it. It's going to be a great site for you. And I want to remind everybody that Halloween is coming and my site is www.asylumsgate.com. If your area, and I don't care if it's in Sweden, I don't care because we have an international site. If you're having something cool going on that's related to anomalous topics, or you just have a charity of some kind that you want to, get attention for, we have members, events, and conventions. You go to that forum and you please post your events there. There are so many really, really cool Halloween, October, fall events going on, and I just want to speak about a few before we get going. October 7th, 6th and 7th, this coming weekend, the Philadelphia Lazaretto. It's the United States' first quarantine station. They're having a mystery weekend, living history. That's the 6th and 7th, and it's called the Philadelphia Lazaretto. If you look it up, you'll find it, Google it. It's wonderful. They're saving the old Lazaretto, and the town is like Titanium or something like that, that it's actually in. They're going to be using it as their municipal hall. And so this is a great way to fit in your history and some mystery, and the place is haunted. So this weekend, that's a very cool place to go. Also, October 6th, Asbury Park, New Jersey is having their annual zombie walk, and they are the winners of the Guinness Book of Records for the most zombies walking. October 6th and 7th, Alair State Park in New Jersey is having the story of Sleepy Hollow read and I think acted out in their chapel. And my niece was married in that chapel. It is a wonderful setting. It's just like the schoolhouse that Ichabod Crane is said to, have taught in. So that's going on in Allaire State Park. October 9th, next week, our favorite historian, Al Savaline, is going to be on, and he's going to be talking about Rose Hill Cemetery, an incredible historical cemetery in Matawan, New Jersey, and other stuff going on in Central Jersey in history, and ghosts in the mansion there, the Burroughs Mansion. Then October 13th, the following weekend, Allaire Park is going to have an actor reading Edgar Allan Poe, and this guy really looks like it. If you go to my Facebook, Mo Banshee Investigations on Facebook, I've posted a lot of this. October 20th and 21st, Matawan, New Jersey is going to have their Rose Hill Cemetery tours. It's an 18th century or 19th century garden cemetery, which is absolutely incredible. The shark attack victims from the 1916 shark attacks. That's where the idea for Jaws came from. It's a true story, and basically it's exactly what you see. Shark went up the stream, got a boy, guy in a boat tried to save him, lost his leg, the whole 9 yards. They're buried in Rose Hill Cemetery. So you can find that on my site. Then on October 20th, Sharon Smith Lentz, who played Sarah in Dark Shadows, the original series. She was a guest of ours a few weeks ago. She's giving a night tour through Lyndhurst Estate in Tarrytown. And on October 24th, selected movie theaters are going to be playing Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein in their entirety on the silver screen. It's going to be back in the movies. And let's see. October 28th, Beverly Washburn and one of the DeMarco sisters is having a luncheon in Edison, New Jersey, and that's going to be a wonderful time. I've gone to her presentations. It's great. Beverly Washburn has been in over 500 movies and television shows. She's a real trooper from Hollywood. And anybody that goes there is going to love it. So there is so much going on. And if you have something going on, please go to Asylum's Gate and put it in there. We have some crazy but news, and I always do. And each week I say the same thing. I can't believe that some of the stuff I find, I always think I'm not going to have anything. And then God just gives me a bumper crop of crazy news. Samuel Phipps, 31 years old, was arrested on his 7th DUI charge after getting into a car accident. And he's from Newcastle, Delaware. And when the trooper responded to the accident, he said that Phipps was impaired. He was drunk. And that Phipps told him that the reason he had this terrible accident was he had to swerve the car to avoid hitting an elephant that he observed running in the path of his vehicle. There were no elephants running loose that they know of in Newcastle that night, but Phipps also does not have insurance, so he was arrested. But I want to warn everybody in Newcastle, Delaware, be real careful, because, you know, that elephant might show up again. So everybody be really careful. There is a, what do you call it, a YouTube going viral. And I watched it, and I thought it was hysterical. This woman, her last name is Grillo. She evidently has a problem with bears going on her property. She lives near a stream and all. And this bear wanders up, goes up on her deck, and her husband yells and says, hey, you know, the bear's coming. And she comes out and she starts yelling at it, get down. No, no, you get out of here. And that poor bear took off for its life. It is the funniest thing. You know, we always hear, oh my God, these vicious bears, you know. This bear is a lot more afraid of that woman, Mrs. Grillo, than, you know, anything else. But it is just so funny. So if you go to YouTube, you can check it out. But she literally scares a bear right off her property by yelling at him, saying, "No, no, shame on you, bad bear," and things like that. And she walks right up to him, shaking her finger. It is just funny. Google has been the talk of the town this past week because of UFO mystery. Evidently, lens flare had shown up, and it looked like a UFO, a pink UFO. And some big important guy that's into UFOs says obviously it's a cover-up and they're really pictures of UFOs, even though you could see through them and you can trace that it's a lens flare. But that's rocking the UFO world tonight. People are on both sides of the line saying, no, they're real UFOs. And then other people are saying, come on, get a life. You know, it's lens flare. We see that all the time, even with people posting pictures of ghosts, lens flare. And I think the last note, I got one more, but the next story is when an alleged drug deal backfired on Ashley Bellamy and her boyfriend Marcus Gibson, she pulled the ultimate inside job. The 22-year-old Philadelphia woman hid 36 vials of crack in her vagina in an attempt to stay out of custody. And the only reason the police realized it is because she was walking really, really odd. If she is that bad that when she walks, things are falling out of her bottom, it's time to see a doctor and get a tuck or something. But anyway, she hid it there because it was a deal that went wrong. The guy didn't have the money, and instead of going and getting the money, he just called the police on them. And she's in jail now for concealing narcotics. Now, the problem is that there was also a gun present during this alleged deal, and the police said they're not looking for the gun because they got a bad feeling they know where she stuck the gun. So a very talented lady, Miss Ashley, you know. I don't know that I would want to do that, but what the heck. And in India, the doctors removed a 4-pound hairball from the stomach of a 19-year-old student. She hadn't been able to eat or do anything else for the last few days. And finally, they put her in the hospital, and they discovered a hairball weighing nearly 4 pounds stuck between her stomach and small intestine. It turns out that while the girl is in class, she eats her hair and chalk, and the chalk caused the hair to bind up and get stuck in her. But as impressive as that hairball is, they said in 2007 a Chicago teen had one removed from their stomach, and it weighed 10 pounds and measured 15 inches. These kids got to learn to eat junk food. Hair and stuff like that just isn't a good thing. You can't pass it. It's not roughage, you know? And last but not least, Jane Goodall is famous. She's a primatologist. She is probably the most famous woman for her study of chimpanzees in Africa and trying to protect them. And now she's said she's very interested in finding out if there is a mysterious creature known as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or the Yeti. She says, I'm not going to flat out deny its existence, but she's very fascinated by it and would actually like them to exist. And of course, if somebody wants to invite her, she's ready to pick up her backpack and start trying to find out if they really exist. So I think that our Bigfoot enthusiasts should contact Jane Goodall. If you get her on your team, you're really going to be rocking. There's somebody saying something. Anyway, our guest is waiting, and our guest is a reverend, and Her name is Amy Blackthorn, and she has 19 years of experience with paganism and various magical traditions. She's been a media liaison for ABC Television, the Sci-Fi Channel, the Associated Press, and Stanford Advocate, and the Connecticut Post. When I tell people that I'm going to try to get somebody who knows their stuff about a topic, I don't mess around. And this young lady seems to be exactly who we need to talk tonight, because we're going to be talking about Wicca or witchcraft, which I think are both the same thing. Amy, welcome to the lab.
Hi, Mo. Thank you so much for having me.
Are Wicca and witchcraft the same thing?
Yes and no. Wiccans do utilize witchcraft. Wicca is a religion. Witchcraft is a practice. So I would say probably 90% of Wiccans do utilize witchcraft, but witchcraft is not only utilized by Wiccans.
Okay. So what is the difference between them? There's a difference. Do you practice both or just one?
Oh, I practice both.
Okay.
I definitely believe that my religious practice is a part of who I am spiritually, but my magical practice is part of the way that I express myself day to day in the environment that I am at all times.
Okay, how did you become a follower of Wicca or witchcraft?
I had found a book, Wicca, A Guide for a Solitary Practitioner, by Scott Cunningham, at a very, very young age. My older sister was at the age where she was starting to explore her own spirituality, and living in the same bedroom and being a nosy younger sister, I read the same books that she had brought home.
Okay.
And I was very interested to realize that the things that this book discussed about the way that the universe works, the ideas about the god and the goddess, and the way that society should view nature and interpersonal relationships was the way that I was feeling. And I never looked back.
Were you inspired at all by Gerald Gardner and his writings?
As an older teenager, I decided that I needed more experience in some of the works that came before Cunningham. When I started reading, there really wasn't a lot.
Mm-hmm. Because really,
Gardner,
a lot of people say it didn't exist in the form it is now until like 1946, when Gardner started writing and practicing.
Thank you for doing your research. That's exactly right. Gardner wanted everyone to think that the way that that Wicca had existed for X number of years before he came into it, and he was initiated by Dorothy Clutterbuck, and Dorothy had been doing this forever. And whether or not he was initiated by Dorothy, what is known as Wicca today in the British traditional witchcraft genre, so to speak, was greatly influenced by Gardner's friendships and relationships with ceremonial magicians and lots of different secret societies and different sects that he had worked through, and each of those interactions, each of those friendships began to color what he then started to practice as Wicca.
Mm-hmm.
So each of those individual relationships added a little bit of color to the pot. So you'll see sort of a family resemblance in some of the little nuances in liturgy that is used during ritual, in the ways that people interact in between covens and between traditions. Those sort of ritual handshakes were written by other religious orders and by different, supposed secret societies before Gardner had come along. It was those friendships and those relationships that actually funneled those changes into what Wicca is now.
Right. There seems to be like variations, if you will, Gardner and then Gardner. Let's see, Alexandrian, Dianic, Celtic. What are the differences between them? Just who founded them?
Not necessarily. There's a joke among British traditional witchcraft practitioners that Alexander's was initiated by Gardner and sort of took how he was trained, and 99% of it is the same. It's just when Sanders went to do his own thing, he decided to take out what he didn't like. A lot of the traditions that branched off from Gardner's lines have that sort of family resemblance, but not all of them do. For instance, Dianic witchcraft is traditionally for women only. A lot about Gardnerian witchcraft is about balance. That's where a lot of traditional covens, you have 13 people. You have the high priestess, and then sets of people, women and men, who then branch off or hide and create their own covens once they graduate. So it keeps that idea growing.
Yeah, it seems like all of them have the basic tradition that, I found this interesting. I really did, because you're talking about a faith, a lifestyle. I'm not even going to call it a faith. It's definitely a lifestyle. It's a path people choose, where women are traditionally at the head of it, where typically throughout history, men ran religion, and anything that was considered a belief or whatever. But in Wicca and Witchcraft, which are basically kind of sister things, women are at the center of it, right?
That's true. Women have traditionally held more power in certain traditions, but the idea that the goddess is the only part is largely a misnomer. The god in most traditions, excluding Dianic traditions, of course, the god is not a backup dancer, as someone I used to teach with was fond of saying. I always thought it a shame that because many of the women who came to Wicca came from a patriarchal society, they found it empowering to be able to embrace a faith that had women having a powerful role. That's not to say that the god doesn't have just as strong a role. It's just the practitioner and the way that they're approaching their role. Keep in mind that Wicca used to just mean covens who were initiated and had lineage back to Gardner or back to some of the other British traditional witchcraft founders, and had that lineage. It was initiatory. Now, when you say Wicca, most people think that it's this eclectic amalgamation of I do what I feel and throw out the rest.
Yeah, I have to say that I kind of, when I first started going into this, the first thing I thought was a bunch of teenage girls sitting in their room saying, I'm going to wrap some thread around something and put a curse on my teacher because I don't like him, or make this boy fall in love with me. I don't know why that's always where I kind of went with that, because I didn't know that much about it when I started this.
Most people don't. Most people, they see movies like The Craft. They see this idea that, women, especially young teenage women, are using it in order to get back at someone else. Those teenage years are a time in our lives when we're trying desperately to control something in our lives. Mm-hmm. And it makes it easier, especially for younger women, who feel that they have been disenfranchised, who feel that they have no power in their life, to bring some of that feeling of control over their surroundings by allowing them to embrace a faith that says magic is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not, you know, when you talk with people from mainstream society and you say the word witch, they either A, think that you're delusional, magic doesn't really exist and you're a crazy person, or B, you have the powers of the universe and there's abject terror involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a word. And one of the reasons that a lot of people use that word is because they want you to understand that there is magic. There is that aspect to Wicca, to Wiccan practice. There is the aspect of magic. But it's not charmed. It's not the craft. It's not what people have seen on TV and in the movies. Because some friends of mine and I were joking the other day, if people made movies that reflected what, say, witchcraft or Wicca, for example, if they showed a movie about Wiccan practice on a daily basis, no one would watch it because it's not sensational. Because it's not
boring.
It's not scandalous. Exactly, it would be boring.
Mm-hmm.
We play and we have the same trials and tribulations of any other faith. It just so happens that we try and assuage some of those daily trials through a practice that we feel is magical. A lot of magic is related to and associated with physics.
Let me interrupt for a minute.
Sure.
When I tell people, I help people with extreme real hauntings, not the stuff you see on TV. Mm-hmm. People will look at me and say, "Oh my God, that's so exciting." And I tell them it's like watching grass grow. And you see the absolute worst in everything that people do. I mean, we have seen it all. It's not like on TV, and it's not what the media is trying to make everybody think. Everybody who it gets involved in trying to help people with hauntings gets rich, because that's not true, and it is very boring. And I think that the media, people believe what they see in these movies about witches, like that you can pick somebody up and turn them invisible and stuff, don't they?
They really do. And it's amusing because you can tell how these people have sort of based their faith by how they react when they find that there's someone among them who doesn't belong to the same faith. It's actually quite sad because many of the mainstream faiths say that you should love your neighbor as yourself, that you should, try and appreciate people. The one that I find more common is love the sinner, hate the sin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's expounded by these people, but a lot of them don't actually practice the way that they preach.
Right.
So
you got a lot of bad practitioners that distort it also, right?
Practitioners of what?
Of people who say they're Wiccans and witchcraft, and maybe you've got a lot of people saying they can do things that, glamorizing it perhaps.
There are also serial killers who claim to be Christian.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and there are ghost people who say that they're ghost hunters, and I've never had to hunt a ghost. So it's all, they're good and bad and everything. We're going to go to break, but first let me ask you, because I'm writing down questions as we talk. If you're practicing Wicca, or if you want to call it the craft or witchcraft or whatever, can you be a practicing, let's say, a Catholic or a Christian, or practice one of the other religions and make it all work together?
That depends on the person, not on the faith. There's actually a larger segment that's growing every year of people who blend more than one faith: Christian Wiccans, Jewish Wiccans, That's within their own space, their own purview. It's between them and their gods, and I personally have no problem with it. It's between them and their gods. They're not a part of my they're not part of my tradition, and they sort of, from the practitioners that I've discussed this with, they sort of see themselves in the Venn diagram of faith.
Right.
Wiccans are here and the Catholics are here, and they sort of blend the two, and they worked very well for them. And for those people, I'm wholeheartedly accepting and proud for them, because all we have in this world is the things that we hold dear in our hearts. You know, our houses can burn down, our loved ones can be taken from us, and those things are what get us through that. What we carry in our hearts is what carries us through. So that's anything that makes this existence easier for them. I am all for it.
Right. And I have a case right now I'm working on, and the woman is very, very, even though she's not a Catholic, she holds very tightly to the Catholic base that she was raised on. And of course, one of the problems that I'm going in is, no, all spirits are bad. They're demonic. You know, the Bible says that, don't call on spirits. And I personally have never had a problem negotiating God and the idea that for some reason he leaves spirits on earth. You know, it's his business why he leaves them. You know, it's all about whether they can make it work, and if they can or they choose not to, it's all up to them. Because the basic thing I'm seeing from all of that I've read is the golden rule is do no harm, right?
Absolutely. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Right. We're going to go to break, and we'll be right back. And then we're going to open the lines. If somebody wants to call in and ask Amy a question, a specific question, please feel free. We'll be right back. This is Game Gone Radio, and tonight we're talking about Wicca and witchcraft. We'll be right back.
Just a reminder, guys, all our talk show hosts here at GameCon Radio volunteer their time, but you can always show your appreciation. Click on the tip jar and give them a little love. I'm sure maybe your predictions will come out a little bit better. And that's how we roll here at GameCon Radio. We rock your game and your paranormal.
This is Michelle Tomlinson, the Scream Queen, and I listen to GameCon Radio. Why? Because it rocks.
Welcome back to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GameConRadio.com. We're rocking your world tonight with Reverend Amy Blackthorn, and we're talking about Wicca and witchcraft. And Amy is she's got the education for it. She's taught classes in Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. She's aided on ABC television, Sci-Fi channel, and she really is very learned in this and a practitioner of Wicca. And what we're going to talk about now is the what it is and what it isn't, and it's going to be a little slow going, I think, but very, very interesting. And we have a number if anybody wants to call in and ask a question. It's 732-707-7709. But I just have to say, excuse me and be very rude, Amy, because for some reason we sometimes drop the calls if we don't just take them right away. Just be patient. We'll take the call. And again, I apologize. I'm getting over pneumonia, and I'm having a real rough time of it, so I'm coughing a lot. And the tech gave me some Irish mist because I ran out of cough medicine. And right now I'm sweating from this stuff. Okay, so Amy, what isn't witchcraft or Wicca? It's not a cult, right?
No. One of the first things that the cult awareness checklists ask you is there one charismatic leader who everyone sort of fawns over and devotes their life, their property, and occasionally their bodies too. And Wicca has individual, very small groups. There's no pope. There's no sage guru that just embodies everything. There's no one to give all our money to. There's no one like that. As a matter of fact, it's sort of most of the mainstream society that reflects on what Wicca is and what Wiccans do. Actually, their complaint is that we don't have the gurus and the popes that assign what is and what isn't part of living canon. So the very first qualification is right out the window.
Okay, and the groups, are they all called covens or groups or what?
Individual, they're normally considered covens, but each one chooses their own name, so they could be Circle Ravenshire or Coven of the Way. Each group has the ability to name their own church, just like with any other faith, but they're traditionally referred to as covens, yes.
Okay. The next thing is most people will, especially if you get anybody that's, very religiously minded, they will say, well, they worship Satan, or they ask demons to do favors for them.
It happens a lot.
I'm just bringing it out there so we can clear it.
Oh, I know. No, it happens a lot that I myself have been accused of, worshiping the devil and having such associations. And the best part, the part that I find the funniest is that on one hand, you're either accused of worshiping the devil outright, and when you try to explain, no, this isn't what I do. I try and be a good person. Then they move further down the explanation of, well, you're really worshiping the devil, you just don't know it yet. So I'm either a bad person or I'm stupid and not aware of what's going on, the real story. And the truth is that Wiccan practice gives you the opportunity to meditate and work with deities, gods, who other people have relegated to the idea of myth. Well, anything that has been worshipped and that people have put this much faith into, this much energy into, exists. Mm-hmm. The idea that people create gods by putting that faith and putting that energy into the idea of this being exists. Mm-hmm. Gods exist because they have worship. They derive their energies and their, for lack of a better term, godly powers from the idea of being worshipped. If everyone on the planet forgot that this being existed, it would have no power. Yeah. So the gods that Wiccans worship exist just as any other gods do.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, do you believe in God and the devil? Personally?
Personally, I believe in that the Christian God exists, just as I believe my gods and the gods of Buddhists and the gods of Hindus and the gods of any other faith on this planet exist because they have worship.
Mm-hmm. Because
I think that... Go ahead.
It was like I said before, I'm working a case, and the thing is that I know there is God, and I know that there are spirits. People live, they die. Bad people don't become good because they die, and that doesn't make them demonic. I don't know why God doesn't make them all go to heaven or whatever. I personally believe heaven is to be with God. It isn't a place. It's being able to be with him, and hell would be estranged from him when he says, no, you can't come with me, because, he's not sending you to a fiery pit, as far as I understand it, but saying that, people will say, well, you're summoning spirits, and my answer is, no, I'm not. They've always been here, So it kind of plays off, if you believe in God, then he's always been there. You can't call him up. He's always been there, right?
Correct.
Okay, we have
the path that I have chosen does not say the God of Christians does not exist.
Right.
My path is that I choose to worship a different set of deities. Mm-hmm. The idea of thou shalt have no other gods before me applies to Christians. So when Christians ask me, they talk to me, they interact with me, and they're concerned because I'm putting another god before their God. That understandable that they'd have that fear and that wish for me to be a part of what they do, that gives them that hope and that light that drives them. That's wonderful that they found that, but that isn't a part of my faith. My gods aren't jealous. I'm able to develop relationships with more than...
Hello? I think we lost her.
You're here.
Hang on, everybody. I think we lost her. Oh, okay. There you are. Okay, you cut out for a minute. Okay. Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Okay, because we kind of lost you in the middle of that sentence.
Where did we lose each other?
You were saying that the deities that you worship. Let me ask you, what deities do you worship?
My personal pantheon includes goddesses like the Morrigan. I have a personal relationship with Diana and Hecate and all of the Greek gods. But the traditional pantheon that I was brought to as a very young little witch was the Greek. The pantheon which I was initiated to, the coven that I was a part of, worshipped, was Celtic. So I have relationships with those deities. It's not that I don't disbelieve in other pantheons. It's just that I don't have experience with those deities.
Okay.
I have a relationship with gods of the Greek and Celtic pantheons due to my religious background.
Okay, and the Celtic Church of Wicca, is that kind of what you're talking about, Gavin and Yvonne Frost?
No. The Frost School of Wicca is not part of my purview. The deities of Celtic pantheons are, but not every Wiccan who belongs to or worships deities of a Celtic pantheon is from the Frost School of Wicca.
Okay, I have a question here. Let me ask a question before I get lost here. Is Wicca more eternal or more to exert forces on others?
I'm not sure we understand the question.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand it either.
Is it more infernal, or to sort of like force on others, like spells, or to affect others?
Okay. So is it more a personal journey, or is it more a can you put spells on other people? I mean, are there people who can abuse it and use it for evil?
Of course there are. There are people who can, of any faith, who can hurt other people. The idea of magic and the idea of utilizing the energies that we are given is unfortunately, it's possible. It's just that we choose to be better people. Just like Christians strive to be good people, just like Jews and Buddhists and Hindus, just like any other faith tells its adherents to strive to be good people, as do Wiccans try to be good people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that goes back to that do no harm is like one of the golden rules that I've read for all the different variations of Wicca or witchcraft, right?
Yes, where it's in most paths it's called the Wiccan Reed. Not every person chooses to follow the Wiccan Reed. Reed means to advise. Mm-hmm. It means, having good counsel. It's a good idea to live your life without harm to other people. Mm-hmm. Just like it's a good idea not to, covet things that belong to your neighbor. Just like it's a good idea to listen to your parents. Mm-hmm. It's not the idea of Wicca to tell you this is what you have to do and dress this way and come to this place on Tuesday. But it's to help each other live in a way that helps all of us try to be better people.
Well, every society needs rules if it's going to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The part where we come together as individuals who worship in the same way and at the same time brings us together as people. As human beings, we have that urge to share and to commune and to have community with others. So you see a lot where people, it's almost like aging out of child offenders. I'm a criminal justice major and working on my bachelor's in criminal justice relating. A lot of Wiccans, because it's harder to find community in churches and different religious traditions that aren't a part of Wicca, because it gives them the community that they're looking for. It gives them, I have friends who are Wiccan who go to Catholic Mass on a regular basis because it gives them that feeling of community. It gives them that feeling of connectedness with the people around them. Mm-hmm. All faiths are beautiful. And if someone is Wiccan or pagan and finds beauty in Catholicism, then that's a beautiful thing. I actually have a lot of friends who are Wiccan and attend Catholic services, or are Wiccan and have actually been confirmed or go through the process of converting to Catholicism because they have so much in common. We're taught that, you see the people who are outside of your faith as other, and that there's something wrong with them or there's something lacking. So the fact that anyone can find common ground with another faith is wonderful, especially people who feel as though their parent faith or the faith they were born into has let them down. Mm-hmm. It's the idea of branching out. We are all people trying to figure out why we're here or what is the point here. So the outreach and the opening of your heart to another person is something that we all strive for. And Wicca, as well as all beneficial faiths, just realizes within each of us exists a spark that says, you're just like I am.
Right.
And that connection is what we're all looking for. If everyone can find something that they can connect with another person over, then that's what makes life worth being here for.
let me interrupt. A lot of people will tell me, churches, they've had negative experiences with church and different things. And I try to explain to people that whatever faith you're in, Baptist, Catholic, whatever, most people there are interpreting everything the way they understand it. And it's not necessarily the right interpretation. So a lot of people will join churches and think, well, now my life is going to be perfect. I'm with all these really good people. Then they find out that some of them are pious and use the Bible as a weapon. They use God as a weapon, and I've always tried to use them as a defense. Not God is going to punish you. God wouldn't be happy with me. I don't think God wants that for me. And that seems to be my way of working through it. And I think people become very disillusioned because they have ideas that they finally found the perfect thing for them, and everything's going to be great. And then they realize that these are just people like them trying to interpret whatever it is that they're in, whatever faith, whatever church. And sometimes it doesn't always gel. Not everybody gets the same ideas. And I'm sure it has to be the same way with Wicca, right?
Oh, yes. Everyone is trying to find that interpretation that makes them feel right with the world. And just as there are Christians who try out a few different churches before they find the one that's right for them, so do Wiccans, try out a few different traditions, try out a few different covens before they find the one that's right for them. I almost liken it to my students when I'm teaching an open class that's available to anyone. I want them to take the idea of going and joining a coven if they so choose, because it's not required. It's not an absolute. If you're going to practice, you have to join a coven. Some people don't have that option. Mm-hmm. Some people live in the middle of nowhere, and they really are the only Wiccan within, 200 miles. Some people have those problems. If you choose that you want to go and join a coven, if you want to try and broaden your faith to include other people, think of it like dating. You want to go out and meet a few people. You want to get to know them before you just jump in and say, okay, this is where I'm at. Because just as you can go and visit a church to see their services, to meet some people, many covens have open rituals where just anyone can come in and see what they're doing, see how they interact as a group, as long as you're respectful. Do that. Go and visit and have that open relationship with the groups in your area. Then after you've interviewed and you've talked and you've gotten to know the people involved, then you can make the decision about taking the next step, about thinking about dedication, thinking about saying, okay, this is something I'd like to pursue. Because just like dating, you don't marry someone you just met on a blind date.
Mm-hmm. I have another question. Is Wicca just another social club, a belief system, or does it have practical application in everyday life?
It absolutely has practical application in everyday life. It's not let's go and meet in a building and show off our fancy shoes or show off our new hat on Sundays. The daily aspect of our lives is the more important thing. Our practice is once or twice a month instead of every single Sunday. Our practice is involving meditation, techniques to try and get us to that place where everything is okay, where you can sit and be quiet and be part of yourself for even just a few minutes. Our society drives us so hard and for so long that most people don't have a chance to just be. And one of the things that Wicca gives to its practitioners on a regular basis is permission to just be. the ritual space, whether you're part of the coven or you're practicing by yourself, that gives you the ability to sit in one place at one time and just concentrate on yourself, your development, and who you are right in this moment. Not your bills that you have to pay, not the kids, not the mortgage, not the grocery list, not who has to run where. It's just you, just right now. And if you choose to include deity in your alone time, that's up to you. But the ability to just sit still and think about nothing is really rewarding.
Mm-hmm. I have this thing that I always say, today, everything everybody knows about spirits, they learned from Ghostbusters on TV, ghost hunters, and sometimes this week, especially going through all this, the thought occurred to me, everything most people know about Wicca, they learned from Hocus Pocus. The movie Hocus Pocus, which is a great movie, by the way, don't get me wrong, but it's not realistic. There is no book made of human flesh that the devil put a curse on, and now they can turn children into cats and that kind of thing. When you get people approaching you, and we're going to go to break in a few minutes, but when people approach you, do you get people who are looking for that kind of witchcraft?
Absolutely. I had a woman recently. I run a small question and answer forum where you had found me, as a matter of fact. I volunteer on allexperts.com, and I put up my expertise for anyone to come in and ask me questions about Wicca, about the occult, about witchcraft, about different magical traditions, and I just put it out there. There's a link on my website, idostuff.net, where you can just go and ask a question. You can read through 15 pages of questions that other people have asked. And I had a woman, she introduces herself. She, her name obviously wasn't Barbara. We'll just call her Barbara. Mm-hmm. Said, I'm 50 and I've just read my first book on Wicca and I'm really excited. She says, that it had all this stuff in it. And she said, but I couldn't find any spells. I want to know, when do I get to learn to levitate my furniture so I can vacuum easier? And I could not get her to understand that because she had been watching Bewitched. Bewitched is not a documentary. She could not comprehend that that's not what real witchcraft is. It's not what you see on TV. You're not going to levitate your furniture. You don't say a rhyming couplet and change the color of your hair or turn your sister into a dog. It's just not what happens.
Yeah, you can't make people love you if they don't like you. We have to go to break, and then we're going to continue to talk about what witchcraft is not, and then we're going to talk about what it actually is. And it's a huge thing of nature and becoming one with nature and accepting there are just some things you can't do, like turn people into donkeys and all of that stuff. And we'll be right back. And again, BX in the chat is saying, I have a cough. I'm just getting over pneumonia. Last week I had to cancel a show because I was so bad. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Mo Banshee's Lair and our very, very special guest, Reverend Amy Blackthorn. And the topic tonight is Wicca and witchcraft. And that, Amy, where can they get a hold of you for questions to learn more about this?
My website is idostuff.net. DOSTUFF. I do stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that's how I found you, and it's a good question and answer thing. Things that you don't do. And like I said, most people, everything they learn about anything, they learn from TV now. They watch this crap on TV and think it's all real. You don't sacrifice animals or humans or violate anybody's rights and do weird stuff. And as our text said earlier during the break, run around naked and dance over bonfires, which you may do, but I'm sure it has nothing to do with the witchcraft stuff. I'm sure it's probably a hot date, right?
It is. It's actually a big joke. The nature of sacrifice is to give up something that belongs to you. Well, the sacrifice of an animal is just tantamount to everything that is absolutely the opposite of everything that we stand for. When I make offerings or dedications, or when I leave something, if there's something for a deity that I've decided to give up, it's usually a shot glass full of whiskey or a flower that I've found. Something that's beautiful and natural that means something to me, but blood is sacred to me because it's still in my person. I own it. I don't need to give it away. I don't need to steal it. And the harming of another person or another animal, for a ritualistic purpose, isn't a part of Wicca.
Yeah, they're talking in the chat, and Ghost is saying, I read it on the net, so it must be true. And there's that commercial where the girl with the French model, and he walks up, and he's this big schlunk, and he goes, bonjour. She says, he's a French model. I met him on the internet. If you read it on the internet, it must be true. They can't lie. Anyone claiming to do those things is not actually practicing any kind of Wicca that you know of, right?
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that those people don't exist, but those are individuals who have mental issues, usually, especially unmedicated schizophrenics, and people who have serious mental deficiencies, people who need medical supervision, and it's definitely not part of my religious practice.
Okay, and you don't draw energy from people, you don't, you can't make them fall in love, or there's no supernatural powers or magic that you can use on them, right?
Magic does exist. Magic is a part of what we do, but what people think Wicca, what most people think when they think spells, is not part of that. Most people don't really understand. It's a lot like, it's likened a lot to prayer. And you can pray for anything you want. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get it. When people do say a love spell, it's to draw love to you. And they do work. That's how I've got one of my longest relationships has been with someone that I cast a love spell to bring love to me. And the gentleman I was in a relationship with, where our relationship lasted years. We had a beautiful time together, and I still consider him one of my best friends.
Okay. How did you cast a spell to bring this about?
I was actually at a magical workshop with a popular author who said, this is the type of magic we're going to do. We're going to try and bring in what it is you need. And she gave us some correspondences for the very simple magic that we were going to do. And it was to bring in our fondest wish. And at that time, I desperately wanted a romantic relationship, something that I could share with another person. I could share the witchy side of myself. And I had a list of the perfect qualities in a relationship that I needed and that I wanted. And that's exactly what I got. You know how they say, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Mm-hmm. In this case, I was very careful. I asked for exactly what I wanted and exactly what I needed, and really what came to me. And we're still friends to this day. So I really did get my money's worth, so to speak.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but so what did you do? Pray to a deity for this, or you left? How you didn't drug the guy, right?
Oh, no.
I mean, I don't know about this stuff, so
No, that's okay. That's okay. No, what we did, and it's a very, 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 it's ridiculously simple spell. She handed out an index card, a pen, and a balloon to each person who was participating. And you take your piece of paper and you write down exactly what you're looking for. Mine just happened to be a love spell because I needed that sort of relationship in my life. Mm-hmm. And so I listed the qualities in a relationship that I was looking for. This is to draw love to you. Like we said, I'm not saying, I hope Bobby I want Bobby to fall in love with me because he's perfect. No, that doesn't work, and that's very, very, very unethical, and I won't get into the ramifications of that. Mm-hmm. But the idea was I knew what I needed in my life. So I wrote all those qualities down, and we folded up our pieces of paper, and we put them inside this balloon. And we inflated the balloon, blew it up, and you think of all of that energy that you're directing into this wish that you have. Mm-hmm. You blow up the balloon. We chanted for probably 3 minutes, and then we popped the balloon to release that energy out into the world. Mm-hmm. This was probably 15 years ago. We released that energy out into the world. And she said, now hold on to your balloons and hold on to your pieces of paper until your wish comes true. Once it does, give that balloon to someone else and let them make a wish on your balloon. And that will close the circle. Mm-hmm. Once this gentleman came into my life, once we had established a relationship, I gave my balloon to my mother. She made a wish, it came true, and she actually wound up giving the piece of balloon back to me, and I still have it in a locket somewhere. But the mechanics are simple. It's the energy that you yourself want to put into it. It's the intention. It's the desire that fuels magic. Mm-hmm. This is, I think I want to have tuna for lunch today. It's not a visceral reaction. It's not something you put a lot of energy into. Mm-hmm. One of the things that when people come to the path of Wicca, or another faith that embraces witchcraft, they look at the spells because that's exciting. You go to any bookstore and you see someone who is brand new looking at these books. The first thing they do is flip to the back to see, okay, what spells are in here? What can I do? It's the action that drives them, but magic is a last resort, not the first. Magic is not an excuse to step out of your life, and you don't need every 2 minutes to find a reason to do a spell. Spells are your last resort because you should be working in your daily life already mm-hmm. to manifest the things that you desire and the things that you need in your life.
In the chapter also we're talking about the cool clothes, and I have to be honest, in looking at this and looking at groups who are together and stuff, most of them look like flower children. They don't look like the witches with the black cats and the black capes and that. What do you think about that? Does your group run around looking like Broomhilda, or do they more go with the flower child kind of look?
Neither. Most of the people that I know from cousins that I've had ritual with, that I've had religious experiences with, they're doctors and nurses and lawyers and actually quite a few in federal positions, FBI, DEA, NSA, and other federally respected positions. they're professionals just like anyone else. So they some people are jeans and t-shirts people, some people are slacks and turtleneck people. They dress like everyone else. Mm-hmm. So the stereotypes of the flower children and the angry goth kid are, everyone has their own personality. So you see more normal people than anyone from either end of the spectrum.
Right. Just because you own a motorcycle doesn't make you Hell's Angels,
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the point, but I was just kind of looking at the different covens and stuff and pictures, and most of them, have flowers in their hairs, the only ones that I saw that were in the black and that were like the Salem, around Halloween. I saw pictures and some of them were dressed up like that, and I just thought it was kind of amusing. Another question for you. What is a day in the life of a witch like?
What's the day in the life of any other religion?
Yeah.
I myself, I get up, I greet my husband. We prepare breakfast just like any other couple. It just so happens that on my way to the coffee pot to turn it on, I'll light some incense, or I will, I'll pray to a particular goddess while I'm thinking about what I'm going through for that day. I'll leave an offering for the Morgan, or I'll grab my prayer beads from Hecate's altar spot. I'll freshen some roses over at the Aphrodite shrine.
And you have these in your house?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The idea of having sacred space be where you are is really important, because you are sacred, I am sacred, we are all sacred. So the idea of having to journey to a far-off place to be able to say, yes, I was religious today, is a little anomalous. Mm-hmm. Where you see witches practicing, where you see Wiccans gathering, they're usually in open spaces just because we are in church, we are at worship wherever we are. I had a religious family member ask, well, if you only do ritual outside and at night, are you hiding from God? And I had to explain to her that there's nothing to hide from. In your faith, God is all-knowing and all-seeing, so just because it's dark outside doesn't mean that he wouldn't know what we're doing. This is a time when we're able to meet. Everyone can get together. We can get off work, and we can hang out and enjoy each other's company. Mm-hmm. The rituals that we go through, the rituals that we perform, are about that connection. No matter what holiday, no matter what festival we're celebrating, if it's acknowledging the full moon or if it's celebrating the first harvest, the main part of that ritual is the sitting and the talking and the togetherness over, food and wine and communion with each other. Not in the Christian wine and wafers communion, but the community, the sharing, this is what's going on in my life, and the recognition that we all have things that we need to talk about, and we all have things going on in our lives, and that's what gives us strength, is the idea that we can talk to the people who we love, we can talk to the people around us and get that feedback. But the calling to the elements to have them witness and protect us, the calling to the gods to have them witness our right and protect our sacred space, the reflections of the time of the year or even the time of month that it is the religious aspect, but it wouldn't be anything without someone to share it with in a coven setting. The solitary practitioners are able to share that with themselves and with deity. So there is a lot to be said for both paths. Mm-hmm. They're both finding that connection. They're both engaging that part of themselves. Mm-hmm. I make sure and let my students know that whether they choose to go and join a coven, or whether they choose to stay in as a solitary practitioner, both are beautiful and valid paths.
Okay, Go ahead. Finish your thought.
The idea that we can journey as a person or as a group is beautiful, but most people think, well, I start out as a solitary, and then I join an eclectic coven, then I join a British traditionalist witchcraft coven. It's not a progression. It's each person's own journey. It actually, I will be the first one to tell you, it takes a lot of personal dedication to become a solitary practitioner. Mm-hmm. Because when you're practicing as a part of a group, you have someone who plans the ritual, you have someone who hosts it, you have everyone brings the potluck, food for everybody to eat. There's a sharing of duties. When you're a solitary practitioner, you're the only one who does everything. So your basis for your practice is everything. Mm-hmm. So don't discount those that decide to choose to worship solo rather than continuing as a part of a group. They're both important.
Okay, let me ask you, is your husband a practitioner of Wicca?
Nope.
No.
No, he is, my husband's Buddhist. And
he's what? Buddhist?
My husband's Buddhist.
Ooh.
Takes his separation from self very, very seriously, and tries to find Zen in all that he does. Mm-hmm. So he has participated in a ritual or two to understand and experience what I do. So he understands and he accepts what I do. And we respect each other for our different paths, and it's a beautiful thing. It's funny, everyone has sort of tried to figure out how to approach us as religious people, because both of our families, in one form or another, are Christian. So it's very interesting for them to try and see not only us as religious people of another persuasion, but us as a blended marriage of faith.
Yeah. Do you have children?
No, we do not. My husband has a daughter from a previous marriage that we're just incorporating in the last month into our family and getting to know, and it's an incredibly beautiful process to get to know her as a young woman, because she's now of the age of majority and can get to know us on her own terms, not as legal guardian, but as her father. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
it's raised in a Christian household. So,
yeah. But does she live with the mother, or is it going to be a back and forth type thing?
No, she lives with her mother. She's engaged to be married, so her and her fiance are trying to find a home of their own and trying to start their own family.
Mm-hmm. We had another question, and we're going to go to break in 4 minutes, but scrying, divination, tarot cards, do you do any of that stuff?
I do. As a matter of fact, I practice locally. I do readings via Skype, and I teach others how to do it for themselves.
Yeah, because Amy just sent me via email a picture from an investigation at Fort Delaware, you said?
Yes, Peapatch Island, Fort Delaware.
Yeah, and it's an awesome picture, too, by the way. So you don't have a problem understanding that there are spirits and not everybody goes to Disney World after they die, right?
Oh, no. I was raised in a family that believes in scrying, that believes in intuition, and you know, my mother we've related stories now as adults of her seeing spirits from a very young age, just like I did. So that was a connection that we shared very early on, and I now have a crystal ball that was passed down to her. It's actually sitting in the middle of my altar, and it's one of my most prized possessions. I've been drawn to this crystal ball since before I knew what it was or what it was used for. I just knew that one day that was going to be mine, and recently it has become so. The idea that spirits are out there and that they're a part of our existence has always been understood in our family.
So you use a crystal for scrying?
Yeah, I use crystals for scrying. I have scrying bowls, and I teach fire scrying. I teach 4-element scrying. So I teach others to use, incense for air, or water with a few drops of oil in it for water scrying. Crystals, both clear and other stones, as well as fire scrying. They're each individual tools, and they actually work very well. So I enjoy teaching them.
Yeah, I don't have a problem understanding that there's God and there's spirits, and some people just don't move. They don't go to wherever, my big problem comes when people say, I'm going to send them to the light. And that that ticks me off. I get a little abrupt with people, because to say you're sending them to the light is to subscribe to heaven or something like that. And I just don't see God needs our help to do that. If he's God, he sure doesn't need me in New Jersey to say, oh, by the way, God's busy today and you need to go to the light, Yes. And I've always found that to be a really ridiculous thing when people say, oh, I had to send him to the light. And then I always come up with something very sarcastic like, oh, is God in Bermuda this week? That he needed you to do that. There's a reason why God lets them stay. They're not ready, whatever it is, but there's a reason for it. We're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to finish up. This is just a very interesting discussion. And I'm going to let you tell us what witchcraft and Wicca is. It's spells for healing, love, harmony, what it actually is, and what it means to you. We'll be right back. This is GameCon Radio. You're listening to Mo Banshee's Lair, and our very incredible guest this evening, Reverend Amy Blackthorn, and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio. So we've told everybody what Wicca witchcraft isn't. What is it? What, in your own words, tell us what it is, and if people are interested in really getting into this or learning more, where they should go book-wise, or where they can go for information.
There is a suggested reading list on my website, idostuff.net. It's under the Wicca tab. There's about 20 different books that are listed that, go to the website, go and find a library, go and find a bookstore. Amazon has a lot of these books used for pennies. It's great to have the internet to be able to do research, but as we've talked about during our breaks, just because it's written on the internet doesn't make it true. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, anyone can make a website. Anyone can say just about anything they like. So being able to go to hard books, be able to go and get real research done by people who have been doing this longer than most of our listeners have probably been alive. There are books, True Magic by Amber Kay is a really great guide that says here are the facts, plain and simple, take it or leave it. Wicca Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham is a fantastic resource. It's the book that I started with. It's a book that a lot of people start with. And the first half of the book is what Wicca is, what Wicca is not, how we view deity and those things. And the second half of the book is the Book of Shadows, the book that, it's the religious liturgy of each witch. And it's got a lot of really great information. So what is Wicca? The appreciation for the earth is one of the things that most people recognize right off the bat. If they've heard anything, they usually say, "Oh, well, that's that, dirt worship and stuff, right?" People associate the reverence for nature with our worship system. It's a question that we get frequently. It's not worship of the earth. It's the idea that instead of viewing deity as external, say in heaven, for example, Wiccans believe that deity, the god, the goddess, and spirit that animates all of us is in every living thing. So we recognize that by giving honor to things like trees and those elements of nature. We're not worshiping the trees, the dirt, or the earth, or the grass. That can be part of other faiths. For example, Druids feel that trees are inherently divine. I don't have a whole lot of experience with those of the Druid faith. It's very, very beautiful, but not my particular faith. So the idea of that reverence is what most people connect with. Oh, that's your worship system, right? No. We have holidays just like every other faith. Our faith actually celebrates 8 holy festivals, and they're actually evenly spaced throughout the year, to the point where they're so evenly spaced, we call it the Wheel of the Year. When you look at it, there's sort of a diagram, and each one of those holy festivals is exactly 45.62, give or take, days apart. They're organized by the solar calendar. The holy festivals, there are 8 of them. Each one of them, we have the 4 cross-quarter days and the 4 lesser festivals. So the first day of summer, fall, winter, and spring are 4 holy observances. And the exact halfway point on those days are the other holidays.
Okay.
So we have holidays. The one that most people recognize is called Samhain. It's Halloween, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. Samhain meaning summer's end and dealing with the meat harvest. The very first harvest festival is the beginning of August. Then we have the first day of fall in September, which is dealing with the fruits of the harvest being brought in. Samhain is the meat harvest, when the shepherds would bring in their flocks to be butchered for the winter season, so that the farmers had meat to eat during the very cold winter months. Nowadays, Samhain is celebrated. It's always been about that connection with the ancestors and the spirits of our loved ones who have crossed over. Mm-hmm. We feel that the veil that separates the veil of the living, the world of the living, to the land of the dead is very thin at this time of year, and the spirits of our loved ones are able to come and visit. They always have the ability, but it makes it a little easier to communicate. It's very customary at Samhain to set an extra place at dinner, and the ritual observance includes having a dumb supper. You set places at the dinner table for the loved ones who have crossed, and you don't speak. It means dumb mute speech. And you reflect on those things that those members of your family who have given you, now that they're no longer with you, you reflect on those things. and you take that time to eat and have communion with those relatives if their spirit is present, then you're still sharing that same space. You're showing them that you honor their love, their sacrifice, and the commitment that they've been a part of your life. Mm-hmm. It's very customary to do divination this time of year because of that closeness and the veil thinning. It's very common for witches at their silent celebrations to partake in divination of different kinds. Mm-hmm. So many traditions have someone who volunteers to do divination, whether it be tarot or in larger, more traditional covens. The high priestess may, for lack of a better term, channel the goddess of their choice and ask her for her wisdom for the next year. It's an incredibly moving ceremony, and if you're ever invited to be a part of this, it should be the highest honor, because that's something that is part of the holiest of holies, to be asked to be part of that, to be in the presence of the goddess, different goddess, or any of the deities that are being invoked at that point. There was a ritual that I partook with very, very good friends where there were 3 different head priestesses, and they each asked a different goddess to be a part of that ritual and to pass on knowledge and wisdom to different participants in the ceremony. And I will take the beauty of that ritual with me to my very last breath.
I have a question from VXLOM in the chat. What is the Wiccan take on the end of days for 2012? Are you guys buying into that at all?
As a general rule, no. The way that it's looked at, because of the timing, that is the time when we enter the age of Aquarius. People started singing about it in the 70s, and it's actually coming to pass on the day of the calendar reset for the Mayans.
Right.
So we're looking at it as more of a change or a shift in global consciousness. Maybe we could be a little bit nicer to each other. Maybe we have a little bit more respect for the earth and for its inhabitants, treating each other as we would like to be treated, and a global shift in consciousness, not necessarily some sort of post-apocalyptic adventure movie.
Yeah. I think that everyone pretty much has come to the realization that Mother Earth is about ready to puke with what we've done to her, and it's sad. We've really abused her. We've introduced things, and the old saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should, but we've introduced plastics, we've created chemicals and things that are not natural to our earth, and unfortunately there's no place to put it, and it doesn't degrade, so we've just turned our own earth into a garbage chute, basically. Witchcraft is all about Mother Earth, right? Respecting the earth we come from, right?
Yes. What Wicca is now is sort of a reconstruction of what many people believe religion was like in pre-Christian Europe. Mm-hmm. That you had to respect the earth, you had to respect the land you were given, the land, whether you owned it or you just worked it. You had to give that respect because we didn't have houses, we didn't have central air conditioning. There were small mud huts, out in the sticks. And if you didn't respect the land, you could die.
Right.
If you didn't work the land properly, if you didn't take care of your livestock, if you didn't do everything that you were supposed to do when you were supposed to do it, especially within the cycle of the seasons, that's your life. If you didn't respect it, you're not going to be around because you'd either starve to death, you could be cast out by your family, your town, your loved ones, the harshest punishment was not putting someone to death. It was casting them out.
Right.
To tell them that you're no longer a part of this. That is worse than death, because, you know, at least if you're dead, you're not suffering. If you're cast out by your town, by your family, by your people, you could wander the woods alone until you died or starved to death.
Another thing that in researching this is there's no place in Christianity, every time something bad happens, people say, well, it's the devil challenging us. It's the devil doing this and all that. And from everything I've read, there's no pointing the finger at a bad spirit doing it to you. It's all about, well, it was my fault. There's no
accountability.
Right.
Absolutely. There is no the devil made me do it. There's all of this talk about harming none, you know, really is the discussion of personal accountability. It's a nice idea to try and live in a way that doesn't harm other people, but we are the ones who are also responsible for our deeds. And your deeds, the things that you do, the way that you treat others, that is your worth. And I really stress the idea of, the worthy and the word worthiness sort of have been downgraded over time, but your deeds and being honest with others, being honest with yourself, and sticking to your promises when you give your word and when you give your oath, those are things that have sort of fallen by the wayside in traditional society, but in different branches of paganism and Wicca especially, giving your oath to someone is a huge deal, and not following through on your word says a lot about you. If you can't be trusted to follow through with your word, there's a saying that says a witch is only as good as her word or his word. You know,
right.
Because witches are men or women. You don't call a male witch a warlock. This is a most grievous cultural faux pas. Warlock means oathbreaker or liar. It was traditionally used for people who gave up their covenants to the Inquisition. So to call someone a warlock is to say that you've betrayed everyone that you've ever loved. So male witches are witches, just so we're all on the same page. But to make sure that people understand that idea and that connectedness, that's what we really have to strive for. We are all here. Why not make the best of it?
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is, like I told you about the cup that the team got me, what is the one thing when people come up to you, the misconception that drives you up the wall? The one that gets me is really the idea that I'm worshiping the devil, I just don't know it, because it insinuates that my intelligence is less than stellar and I'm just too stupid to know that I'm really worshiping the devil. I had a discussion with a family member a few years ago. I was in a car accident and died for a few minutes and experienced death. Okay.
Near-death experience, whatever you want to call it. I was declared dead on the scene of this accident. In 2 days, as a matter of fact, it'll be 10 years.
Okay.
And with this family member, she was, in very, very polite, in very loving fashion, was worried about the nature of my soul and what was going to happen when I died. And I had to explain to her that, I went to seminary school. I've spent a lot of years working with my faith, doing charity work and volunteer work and running a temple and making this my life. The fact that I had to explain to her over and over and over again that I'm okay with what I'm doing. I'm okay with what happens when I die because I have died. I know where I'm going when I die. I know what happens when I die. I'm okay with it. And she just refused to believe that what I experienced wasn't what she was told would happen to her. And I had no problem telling her, what is going to happen to you is going to be different than what happens to me, and that's okay. You know, if you think that you're going to the sparkly white light place in the sky, well, then that's great. That's not where I'm going. That's not what my faith is based on, and that's not the experience that I had while I was not currently living. Mm-hmm. I was very lucky to have been able to come back from that. Medical science is an amazing thing, and thankfully I still have 2 arms and 2 legs, but that was a very close thing. I wasn't supposed to live through the night, and I wasn't supposed to ever walk again, and I'm doing both of those things. Mm-hmm. They wanted to amputate my leg, and they had tried 3 times amputating my leg, and I kept telling them no. I had, at the time, the tradition that I was a part of had 450 members, and I had 450 witches pulling for me, praying for me, lighting candles, doing spell work, and I got better faster than medical science could accommodate for. Mm-hmm. I had doctors coming to my loved ones and saying, we really don't understand why she's able to do this, why she's, you know, I was able to call for help with 2 broken arms and 2 broken legs. Mm. I went through a number of instances in this worse than unimaginable situation. Mm-hmm. But I was able to do it because I had that strength of faith. I had just got my black belt, and I was already in seminary school when this happened. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the giant revelation of changing my faith because a lot of people expected it. I firmly believe that, you know, they thought that once this horrible thing had happened, I would feel as though my God had abandoned me and I would change my mind and come back to Jesus or what have you. But it reaffirmed all the things that seminary school had taught me, that Wicca had taught me, that was the way things operate. And it reaffirmed my belief even more, and I was able to finish seminary school. I was able to help other people. And now I'm getting the opportunity. I want to take that journey even further in my professional career in the next few years. So Wicca's just given me the strength to say, it's okay. Mm-hmm. I know that what it is right, and no matter how many times I get people telling me that I'm worshiping the devil, I can just take that deep breath, smile, and help them to understand if it's possible, because I know that I'm not going to reach everyone. Not everyone's going to believe me, and that's okay. But I can smile, and I can tell them this is what's right for me.
Yeah. We got another question, and then we're going to slip it in. Shadow Seer in the chat is asking, what do Wiccans think of Jesus?
I try never to speak for all Wiccans, and I'm going to speak from my purview, because the 411 on Jesus isn't part of the liturgy here. Right. I personally think he was a great guy who did a lot of amazing things. Do I believe Jesus is the Son of God? Yes. But I also believe that we are all sons and daughters of deity. Mm-hmm. One of the schools, or one of the realms of thought that I've become accustomed to is Reiki. A man went in search of the ability to heal as though Jesus did, and Reiki was developed. Mm-hmm. Very, very shortened version. And so, do I believe Jesus existed? Yes. Do I believe he was the Son of God? Yes. But I also believe we all are. And Wiccans believe that he is a prophet just like Muhammad or Moses or prophets from any other faith, Krishna. They all have the touch of the divine in them because they have that connection. And we would all be so lucky to have that connection with the divine. And aspiring to be like Jesus, you could go wrong. You could, you know, there are worse things.
Yeah. I think that if people stop trying to emulate him and trying to make themselves higher, and just understand and accept that, we're supposed to leave this world better than we found it. And I had my near-death thing, and the deal is you have to be ready to leave this life. And if your body can't support you and you're not ready to go and leave, then you stay here as a spirit. God isn't a bully saying you're coming with me because you're dead. You have to be ready. And I've been declared dead a few times, so I think I know what I'm talking about now. And each time he said, you're just not ready. You can't love them. You can't be so attached to them. It has nothing to do with loving God. It's being ready to make that next journey. And it's real easy for me. I don't know why people make it so hard on themselves. We have 3 minutes left. Again, where can people find you?
My website is idostuff.net, and I volunteer through allexperts.com. You can find me through the occult section or alternative religions, New Age. My blog is Realm of Green Witch at blogspot.com, and you can reach that through idostuff.net.
Okay, I'm going to write that down. So when I do the description, Realm of the Green Witch .com, right? And,
yes,
I do stuff.
idostuff.net. Yes, feel free to like my page, Realm of the Green Witch at idostuff.net on Facebook.
Do you have a face? That's your Facebook, right?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. This was incredibly interesting, and really, I'm sorry we ran out of time, but maybe you'll come back again.
I would love that.
Very cool. And they're saying thank you so much for a very interesting night, and it was.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
please
you just
feel free.
Go ahead.
Feel free to hit me up with any questions you have. I get a lot of people who say, I know this is probably a stupid question, but it's only the questions that don't get asked that are stupid. I've heard it all after this many years. Thank you so much.
I say that all the time. The only stupid questions is the one that you don't ask because you think it's stupid. And if you're thinking it's somebody else's too. Thank you so much. And next week...
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. Next week, our guest is our favorite historian, Al Savaline, who's going to be running another walking tour of Rose Hill Cemetery in Mattawan, and he's going to be coming on and talking to us again. And then on the 16th, Noreen Dresser is coming on, and Lyndhurst Estate will be coming on to talk about their fall activities and Halloween. And then Gary Striner is coming on. He was the a cameraman for the cast, the movie, the original movie, Night of the Living Dead. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. So hang in here, give our link around. I love you all. God bless you all, and good night.
Where over the rainbow birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow while can
Thank you for visiting me at my lair. Mo Banshee's Lair is broadcast live on Tuesday evenings at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific, and in the UK, 3 a.m. Wednesday mornings on www.gameconradio.com. You can listen to our recent recordings on Podomatic/Mo Banshee. You can contact me at www.asylumsgate.com. Again, thank you for listening. God bless you and yours, and have a very cool day.
The opinions and views expressed in the following presentation do not necessarily reflect those of GameCon Radio or its affiliates.
Welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GameConRadio.com. We rock your world.
Welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GameConRadio.com. Tonight's going to be an exercise in willpower because I'm just getting over pneumonia. Every fall, it seems I'm getting it earlier and earlier, but this year the Neverbug came home and I had her down the camper and she was really, really sick and she gave it to me. So please forgive me if I sound like I'm underwater or I start coughing uncontrollably. And my guest tonight already has the heads up that she can take over the show and just talk. Tonight, I want to welcome everybody that's listening on the players in all the ways, the iTunes, all the ways that you're able to listen to GameCon Radio. I'd just like to point out that we have a show schedule at the top of the page. You can look at it all week long. We have wonderful shows, all kinds of things. We've got boot camp with Steve, Stan, we have blues, we have classical, we have great old time radio, we have talk, we have everything. So check out the show schedule for GameCon Radio. You're really going to love it. It's going to be a great site for you. And I want to remind everybody that Halloween is coming, and my site is www.asylumsgate.com. If your area, and I don't care if it's in Sweden, I don't care because we have an international site. If you're having something cool going on that's related to anomalous topics, or you just have a charity of some kind that you want to, get attention for, we have members, events, and conventions. You go to that forum and you please post your events there. There are so many really, really cool Halloween, October, fall events going on, and I just want to speak about a few before we get going. October 7th, 6th, and 7th, this coming weekend, the Philadelphia Lazaretto. It's the United States' first quarantine station. They're having a mystery weekend, living history. That's the 6th and 7th, and it's called the Philadelphia Lazaretto. If you look it up, you'll find it, Google it. It's wonderful. They're saving the old Lazaretto, and the town is like Titanium or something like that, that it's actually in. They're going to be using it as their municipal hall. And so this is a great way to fit in your history and some mystery, and the place is haunted. So this weekend, that's a very cool place to go. Also, October 6th, Asbury Park, New Jersey is having their annual zombie walk, and they are the winners of the Guinness Book of Records for the most zombies walking. October 6th and 7th took off for its life. It is the funniest thing. We always hear, oh my God, these vicious bears, This bear is a lot more afraid of that woman, Mrs. Grillo, than, anything else. But it is just so funny. So if you go to YouTube, you can check it out. But she literally scares a bear right off her property by yelling at him, saying, no, shame on you, bad bear, and things like that. And she walks right up to him, shaking her finger. It is just funny. Google has been the talk of the town this past week because of UFO mystery. Evidently, lens flare had shown up, and it looked like a UFO, a pink UFO, and some big important guy that's into UFOs says obviously it's a cover-up and they're really pictures of UFOs, even though you could see through them and you can trace that it's a lens flare, but that's rocking the UFO world tonight, people are on both sides of the line saying, no, they're real UFOs. And then other people are saying, come on, get a life. You know, it's lens flare. We see that all the time, even with people posting pictures of ghosts, lens flare. And I think the last note, I got one more, but the next story is when an alleged drug deal backfired on Ashley Bellamy and her boyfriend Marcus Gibson, she pulled the ultimate inside job. The 22-year-old Philadelphia woman hid 36 vials of crack in her vagina in an attempt to stay out of custody. And the only reason the police realized it is because she was walking really, really odd. If she is that bad that when she walks, things are falling out of her bottom, it's time to see a doctor and get a tuck or something. But anyway, she hid it there because it was a deal that went wrong. The guy didn't have the money, and instead of going and getting the money, he just called the police on them. And she's in jail. Alair State Park in New Jersey is having the story of Sleepy Hollow read and I think acted out in their chapel. And my niece was married in that chapel. It is a wonderful setting. It's just like the schoolhouse that Ichabod Crane is said to, you know, have taught in. So that's going on in Alair State Park. October 9th, next week, our favorite historian, Al Savaline, is going to be on, and he's going to be talking about Rose Hill Cemetery, an incredible historical cemetery in Matawan, New Jersey, and other stuff going on in Central Jersey in history and ghosts in the mansion there, the Burroughs Mansion. Then October 13th, the following weekend, Alair Park is going to have an actor reading Edgar Allan Poe, and this guy really looks like it. If you go to my Facebook, Mo Banshee Investigations on Facebook, I've posted a lot of this. October 20th and 21st, Matawan, New Jersey is going to have their Rose Hill Cemetery tours. It's an 18th century or 19th century garden cemetery, which is absolutely incredible. The shark attack victims from the 1916 shark attacks. That's where the idea for Jaws came from. It's a true story, and basically it's exactly what you see. Shark went up the stream, got a boy, guy in a boat tried to save him, lost his leg, the whole 9 yards. They're buried in Rose Hill Cemetery. So you can find that on my site. Then on October 20th, Sharon Smith Lentz, who played Sarah in Dark Shadows, the original series. She was a guest of ours a few weeks ago. She's giving a night tour through Lyndhurst Estate in Tarrytown. And on October 24th, selected movie theaters are going to be playing Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein in their entirety on the silver screen. It's going to be back in the movies. And let's see. October 28th, Beverly Washburn and one of the DeMarco sisters is having a luncheon in Edison, New Jersey, and that's going to be a wonderful time. I've gone to her presentations. It's great. Beverly Washburn has been in over 500 movies and television shows. She's a real trooper from Hollywood. And anybody that goes there is going to love it. So there is so much going on. And if you have something going on, please go to Asylum's Gate and put it in there. We have some crazy but news, and I always do. And each week I say the same thing. I can't believe that some of the stuff I find, I always think I'm not going to have anything. And then God just gives me a bumper crop of crazy news. Samuel Phipps, 31 years old, was arrested on his 7th DUI charge after getting into a car accident. And he's from Newcastle, Delaware. And when the trooper responded to the accident, he said that Phipps was impaired. He was drunk. And that Phipps told him that the reason he had this terrible accident was he had to swerve the car to avoid hitting an elephant that he observed running in the path of his vehicle. There were no elephants running loose that they know of in Newcastle that night, but Phipps also does not have insurance, so he was arrested. But I want to warn everybody in Newcastle, Delaware, be real careful, because, you know, that elephant might show up again, so everybody be really careful. There is a... what do you call it, a YouTube going viral, and I watched it and I thought it was hysterical. This woman, her last name is Grillo. She evidently has a problem with bears going on her property. She lives near a stream and all, and this bear wanders up, goes up on her deck, and her husband yells and says, hey, you know, the bear's coming. And she comes out and she starts yelling at it, get down, no, you get out of here. And that poor bear